We are delighted today to sit down with Donna and Steve Kuhr. I met them sailing. They joined one of our sailing trips to the BVI this past January, and it was just a delightful time getting to know them. And one of the things that I was so drawn to about them is that they're married and they work together and they just are so in love. And those are tricky things to pull off in balance. And selfishly, Emily and I are trying to figure out that dance on our own as we've been married for 29 years and we've been in business for a couple years now, and we're still in love, and we're just trying to get better and better. And I just really took Donna and Steve as role models and learned a lot from them. Welcome to the What Could Go Right podcast. We are your hosts, Eric Orton.
And I'm Emily Orton.
And here we talk about personal growth and sailing. In 2014, we moved aboard a fixer-upper sailboat and bootstrapped a year sailing with our 5 kids, and it changed our lives forever.
We tell the whole story in our memoir, our book, 7 at Sea. On this podcast, we want to help you go from fear to freedom, one adventure at a time.
So real quick on Steve and Donna, what I learned on the boat is that they run a company together called PTM Corporation, or used to run a company together. Things have evolved since then, but it's a family business that is from your father. Is that right, Donna?
That's correct. Yeah.
And you're the president and CEO of the company. And for a long time, Steve, you were heading up the sales aspect of the business, and that's evolved now. And you've spun off your own company, and you're now in the process of passing a big chunk of that down to your son, so that you're each sort of, Donna, you've kind of inherited a legacy from your dad, and the two of you now are passing a legacy down to your son as the business transitions. And not only that, you work together in a beautiful way, and also, Steve, you used to run your own dive shop, and we talked about that on the boat. And you used to be a fireman, and you guys were just sharing all these cool stories of things that you did with your kids. You did some kind of crazy snowmobile adventure where you took them up to the, not quite the Arctic tundra, but that's the way it sounded. And they were just teeny little kids, and you took them camping, and just really having your family part of this journey of business and entrepreneurship and faith and adventure, which I loved. And so I'm gonna pause there for a second and let you can correct anything that I got wrong, and then we have a couple of questions that we want to ask you, and a couple of things that I'll share from what I observed and during our time together on the boat, and maybe you can talk about that a little bit.
So basically, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Emily's
Emily,
a much better host than me.
Thank you. Thank you both. Great to be here.
Yeah, what a great opportunity to see you again, and to meet Emily, kind of electronically face to face. But one day we will.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
We will meet up in face to face. That'd be great. So, okay, anything that I said that you want to clarify? Because I know I glossed over a lot of years and decades there.
Yeah, no, I think you hit the nail on the spot. Basically raised our family, and we never stopped doing anything that we loved and cherished before. We always did that with our children. Heck, I remember taking our kids to trade shows, and you're supposed to be like some of the trade shows, 16 18 years old, and our son 12 years old going to trade shows, and we put our kids to work. They did work, because work is good, and he would bring things in, set up, and then, hey, let's involve them at the trade show. And it was we've just believed that all along. We don't jump in head first, feet first, whatever you want to call it, and always involved our kids in everything.
Well, it's not only that, it's experiences. You have to experience life, and if you keep yourself in a small little box, then you're never gonna understand what the rest of the world looks like.
Right.
So
people and situations, and because life is not perfect.
I think you guys have done that beautifully, and I remember, first of all, just so that our listeners know, the company that you run manufactures parts for automobiles and aerospace. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
And you do custom parts, design as well as manufacturing, which is a space that I know close to nothing about, which I love. I love that there are just parts of the world that I know that this is something inside and out, and it's a completely new thing to me. And
Well,
so,
we thought the same thing about you, Eric, how you two were into the creative arts, living in New York with your 5 children. And we just, that's what attracted. Actually, I'm running through Facebook at, midnight and couldn't sleep. And this thing popped up. And I'm like, what? I want to sail with these people. And I've never sailed before, but if they'll take their 5 kids out and do what they did, I would love to learn how to sail by these
They
people.
must
We
have
have
did
much to
something right.
learn.
Yeah.
well,
That's what keeps life interesting, right? Always learning.
yeah, for
Yes.
sure.
So what's unique about PTM, just to kind of go there,
Yeah, please.
why we like it, it's really fulfilling. We hire a number of people, close to 300 people at the organization there. We manufacture on a weekly basis about 1.5 million parts that really ship worldwide. So for us, we can drive down any expressway, side street, or whatever, and know that our parts are on any particular type of vehicle out there. We do a lot of airbag components, clips, brackets, fasteners, and a bunch of things like that. So for us, it's really gratifying to know that we impact the world of the automotive world.
Mm-hmm.
And we're all driving cars.
Yeah.
You're making mobility possible for all of us. So thank you.
And we've had our airbags deploy before
And we're grateful that they did.
Kept us safe. Yes.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Yes.
Yes. So that's an important thing. And our employees know that what they do saves people's lives. So they take their jobs very, very seriously.
So just to bring this down to kind of ground level for me, first day on the boat, we're in the Virgin Islands, and there's a lot of menial tasks that need to get done. One of them is fill the water tanks before we cast off. And I say, hey, Steve, do you mind taking this hose and just topping off the water tanks? And water tanks on boats take a long time to fill because they're big. You want to carry a lot of fresh water with you. And this is a thankless task. I give Steve the hose, and he just sits there holding the hose into the little opening valve for half an hour, 40 minutes, something like that. And I come back and I'm like, hey, Steve, thanks for doing this. And I loved your response. You said, well, hey, I'm here, I'm in the sunshine. I'm with my favorite woman, and life is good. And you guys run a successful, prosperous company. You're leaders with hundreds of employees, and just to be willing to take up, just a menial task of refilling the water tanks and just be like, this is part of it. I just thought, just such a great attitude, and just to be so grateful that you're with your wife and you're doing something simple but useful. And I just thought, these guys are going to be fun. We're going to have a great week. And so I'm just curious, working together, I guess I'll just go straight at it. Working together can be fraught. It can be, when you're in business together, there's lots of ways to approach the solution to a problem. There's lots of ways to define a problem. There's lots of just dynamics. I'm curious if you have any principles or just go to ideas that you kind of live by as you navigate working and being married and working together.
Well, I think I could start by, our business is very intricate in how it works, right? We've got a lot of subject matter experts or SMEs that do what they do. And then there's two sides of our business. There's the operation side, that's where Donna, her expertise is. And then I'm more customer facing and service oriented towards the customer. So I don't ever want to pretend I know more than somebody else. So respecting her ability to do what she does is really where I stay in my lane to say, listen, this is completely your decision, but I'm going to tell you the factors that you may want to consider, but this is your area. This is how you make that decision, and I'll give you all the information that our customer needs to be successful, and then however your principles are or whatever your process is on your side. And believe me, I know them, but at the other side of it, it's her decision. So I'm not going to pretend that I'm going to override her, and that's not even a good word to say. Override somebody or to argue with somebody. It is what it is, and we all know the consequences of what we do. And at the end of the day, I give her the respect of her experience and knowing what she does. And vice versa. If when I'm customer facing and and they can be very difficult, we operate in the world.
Challenging,
Yeah.
not difficult. Just challenging.
Well, I will say that our customers are perfect.
The situation can be challenging, but the
The
customers are perfect.
situation can be challenging
Yes.
because, I told you we manufacture 1.5 million parts every single week. They can't be any different than a human hair with each other. So we have to make them exactly the same every single time. And it's stringent. You drive a vehicle that needs to travel down the road for years and years and years. And what we do, the better we do it, the better your car is going to operate. So there again, she trusts me to be able to be customer facing and to be able to interpret what they need. And then we kind of meet in the middle and say, this is what we can offer. Sometimes it's pro customer and sometimes it's got to be pro PTM. But at the end of the day, we've both had to deliver bad news in one way or another, but it's never an idea or a fact that it's against me or against her. It's just how it has to be at sometimes.
But I think having that mutual respect, I think through time, you build trust and respect through time, right? It happens from series of dealing. We talk about work, but it's also personally. You deal with series of events that happen in your life, whether it's personal or at work. And I think it's when you can grow that way, you go through a situation, you solve it together. Nothing's ever going to be perfect. Then, we have a lot of, like Steve said, SMEs, subject matter experts. So we all collaborate. I think part of our style is teamwork, right? We really shouldn't have the I or me. And if you do, you need to take a step back, because even at our work, there's times that I will say, you know what? It's not what that's not the vision I seen when I went into this meeting. But by the time you get around and you have people at the table that you respect and you built that trust, I think that's when you can get through situations and just life. And that's how it builds. That's how it built for us.
It's not perfect.
Right.
I mean, nobody's ever going to get what they want all the time, but we always say we'll never give each other advice that we wouldn't take ourselves. So
I think it was like something you said on the boat at one time. We were headed north. I can't remember, Eric. And I don't know, the winds were picking up. And you're like, we're going to tuck in over here, right? And we're going to do something different, which I really appreciated. We've got some people in life that when you create a plan, if there's any deviation, it just messes them up. I think you have to be, my dad used to say, you have to be like a duck in water and just let the water roll off your back, right? And sometimes you just have to make change because it just makes sense to make change. And it's not the way you expected or what you wanted, but at the end of the day, it's a fine outcome, right? So I think it's give and take, respect, and having trust with each other.
And talk about the change side. Like Donna said, some people hate change. I look at change as a challenge. If it needs to change, well, this is something new and it's exciting. So, not that we always want to go down a willy-nilly path or
Right.
We like to have it straight and narrow, but at the end of the day, if it changes, it's a new challenge and we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Well, from our trip, I remember two experiences. One is we were heading north to Anegada, and the wind was dying off, and we're like, do we want to keep going all that way with no wind and just end up motoring out and then motoring back? We said, why don't we go somewhere else where we'll go a different direction and the wind is going to be good. And we turned 90 degrees and we headed towards Joost van Dyke, and we had a great day sailing and hit some lovely beaches. And so that was kind of a good change.
Trade-off.
And then the other one was, it might have been our last night or second to last night. We were going to try and anchor by the baths, and there was a big wind from the wrong direction, and the anchorage was really rolly and swelly. And I was like, hey, what do you guys think? And Steve was like, I'm game. We can stay here if you want. And then we just made the decision, no, we're going to go over to Trellis Bay and we're going to anchor there where it's completely protected. And it ended up, we had to kind of backtrack a whole bunch of miles that we'd just done. And when we got there, that's when the big clouds rolled in and it started to rain, and we were all glad that we weren't out in that exposed anchorage. And so it was avoiding kind of a bad situation, whereas the first change was, hey, how can we go from good or better to best? There's all kinds of change. And you guys were so game. I just thought, it was so fun having you out that week that you were willing to roll with whatever. And that's one of the things that I actually look for when I talk with potential crew members, is I ask, how do you feel about flexibility? How do you feel about willing to adjust? Because sailing by its very nature is fluid. And you guys seem to have had that principle in your lives intuitively, that that's just the nature of marriage and the nature of business and the nature of collaboration.
Yeah. So the other thing, though, about that on your end, though, it really made it easy to make decisions, because your communication style was great. You communicated well with the crew. Everybody understood what the potential problems that could happen. People could get seasick. We could, drag the anchor. We could be on shore. Whatever it was, but it was a good communication aspect that you had as well. So also being a leader, you were the leader of the boat. You led well, and you informed people of what everything looked like and the potentials, and people could make a great decision, and they felt very comfortable with your ability. So you also portrayed that.
Oh, you're very kind. Thank you. Okay. So speaking of being leaders, I know I keep going back to our trip together, because that's where we got to know each other the best. One thing that really stood out to me was my son Eli was on this trip, and he had signed us up to do dinner one night. Normally, I just, I was like, "Oh, Eli, we don't have to sign up. The crew they get to prepare all the dinners."
I was glad he signed up. I was like, you know how to do this stuff, and you should sign up, and you're there to be part of the crew. And I was happy he signed up. So maybe we didn't have the same vision for that, but I was really glad that he signed up.
So Eli's 19 years old, and he signs us up to make super nachos. And
this is a recipe that Eric's mom made that I got from her, that has, come into our family. And whenever I make it, everyone's happy. So it was one he knew.
Yeah. So he knew what he was doing, but I was like, hey, Steve and Donna, do you mind helping back Eli up while he makes dinner? Because I'm going to be doing some captainy type stuff. And you guys are like, oh, yeah, sure. And next thing I know, you guys are like, Eli is like your supervisor, and he's got you chopping lettuce and tomatoes and browning the hamburger and all this sort of stuff. And he's like, oh, no, that needs to be chopped. That should be, or no, it wasn't super nacho. I think it was nacho libre salad.
Oh, okay.
And like the cheese should be chopped. The cubes of cheese should be a little bit smaller, Steve. Yeah. And I just think, you guys were so humble. This little teenage kid, you guys run your own company, your grandparents, you're like very, capable and accomplished, and just so humbly taking instructions from this little kid. He's not a little kid, but he's a boy, and you guys were just so gracious, and just, to me, a real example of servant leadership. I can imagine that with your employees, you're humble, and like you said, you don't put yourself above anybody. You trust in your SMEs, that people have their areas of expertise. Anyway, I'm just curious about if you have any thoughts about servant leadership as a concept, or do any of those ideas spark in like how you operate in your company?
So before we answer that, your son is an SME on Nacho Libre salad.
Okay, here's a case study.
Because he's like, oh no, the ham, it's not right. You got to cut it in chunks. It needs to be chunked. And I'm like, well, we have sliced ham. We'll make do. So
we'll get it close.
So I'm like, what do you think? We always wanted to get his feedback, because, when you put somebody in charge, you want to support them, right? And he truly is an SME of the Nacho Libre. And actually, it was very delicious.
And we had to tell him what options were available. We can chop the tomatoes in 1/4-inch cubes. That's not a problem, because we can do that. But like, the ham was sliced, so they couldn't go in 1/4-inch cubes. So we had to, and he learned how to make it audible, and change it to a little bit different. But I do think that it's great to be able to kind of go by the seat of your pants sometimes too, if everything's not going to be perfect,
Yeah. But you talk about servant leadership, and I do feel like this is my 43rd year at PTM Corporation. Our organization has been in business for 53 years, and I've been there 43 of the 53. So I started there pretty young, and I just can see being a micromanager, and I probably was definitely a micromanager, and I don't think that's very motivating to people, and especially being the next generation, you want to do great for the organization. You have big shoes to fill. I think it's those pressures there. Your dad, he has a certain way of doing things, and you learn that, and you're learning from lots of people, and I think you have to pick up your own style. But to me, I feel it is that. Be willing to help others. Don't ask somebody to do something that you're not willing to do or haven't done, right? And I feel like that gets a lot more from our people working together that way than being a dictator or micromanaging. And neither one are very good. So,
We also have another philosophy is, you know, we have a lot of people with a lot of ideas, and then there's a lot of times people they go into self-preservation. So they'll lean back and say, you know what, we can't do this because one, maybe it's a lot of work on their end. Two, they may be afraid of the opportunity to do it and some other stuff like that. But really, what we try to do is give people the opportunity. How are you able to say yes? What do you need to be able to say yes? This is what we can accomplish, because so many times we have so many opportunities out there that says, and they're challenging opportunities. So sometimes there are a lot of intimidations out there in what we do in a high engineered world, So at the end of the day, really what we like to say is, tell me how you can say yes. What are the tools you need? What do you need from us to allow you to do what you do? Because if we don't give them the tools, then of course they're always going to say no, and we'll just go kind of the easy path at that point. So that's another way. How do you get somebody to say yes by giving them the correct tools? So
I love that. So you're saying, like, I realize that there may be obstacles right now, but what would need to be in place for this to work for you? Do you need more people? Do you need more skilled people? Do you need more expertise? Do you need to get paid more because it's going to be more responsibility on you? Like, what's going to make it work for you?
Do you need more time?
Yeah. Do you need more training and letting them come up with almost you're inviting them to come up with the solutions.
And it ultimately then it helps spread the responsibility. It puts the responsibility on our shoulders as the leadership group to say, okay, we'll give you what you want. So now all of a sudden it's hard for them to make a decision. The easy decision, like I said, is no, because it's a safe decision. So tell us what you need. We'll help you get there. We'll give you the tools. And then all of a sudden we all share the aspect of the decision at that point, instead of just letting it rest on their shoulders.
Because ultimately, I think people are afraid of failure. They're afraid to fail. They're afraid to let you down. And I especially everybody has something at stake, right? It's whatever that is, or your reputation, letting the team down, losing money. Nobody wants any of these things. But, I think some of the things that help us are, I think it's important to do debriefs along the way, and I don't like to say, well, this was bad or this was good. What I like to say is, hey, let's look at what happened, right? What happened? Those are normally the facts of whatever it is we're going through. And then look at what worked. I don't like to say this was good. What worked for everybody, and everybody's opinion of what worked is a little bit different, right? So it's nice to get a consensus and then look at what didn't work for us. Not that it's bad, but what didn't work, right? And when you look at it from different seats on where they're at in the organization or within a family, what didn't work, what worked for them, what didn't work for them, and then what did we learn? And if you can write all the things of what did we learn, and then at the end recap and go, how are we going to make this better moving forward? And then just start listing those ideas or whatever it is we want to do. And I think sometimes I do think that helps. I think it takes the emotions out sometimes when at least when we take that approach.
Well, and we want honesty. We don't want you to say what didn't work and you're afraid to say what didn't work. We really want you to tell us what didn't work for you, because that's a big deal. If it didn't work for you, then let's figure it out.
It's not sustainable if it's not working.
Yeah, they will never like to come to their job every day if it's not working.
Right.
Everybody wants to make an impact. Everybody wants it. I think innately human beings want to make a positive impact in their daily routine.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to be able to be impactful. But at the end of the day, if we don't give them the avenue to be able to do that and voice what they do in an honest, respectful way, safe environment, where nobody's going to yell at you or call you a name because you had a bad idea or an idea that somebody didn't think that was the right idea or whatever, that's not allowed. I'm not going to say it doesn't happen, because of course we can't dictate every word that comes out of everybody's mouth, because then we would be robots. But at the end of the day, culturally, we want to be able to make it to where everybody knows that it's okay to express your opinion, regardless of what it is, but you have to do it in a respectful way.
I love that. And
this is all like speaking straight to my heart. And I just want to take a second to universalize what you're saying. Like, even from the smallest child having a tantrum, that is symptomatic of someone not having the tools to handle their situation, whether it's they can't speak yet, and so they can't tell you what's upsetting them, or they feel afraid to come forward. Like, at any age, that overwhelm and upset is always a symptom of, I don't have the tools to handle the situation that's in front of me. And so I'm defaulting into, whatever this unsavory behavior might be. And so I love that you're saying, yeah, this is good leadership at a, in a corporate level. This is good leadership in a family. This is like just basic to humans, or even just one person being able to say, hey, you do not have the skill set to handle what's coming in your life. And that is why you're feeling so upset right now. And so go ahead and feel upset for a minute, and then figure out what tools and resources you need to add into your life, whether it's I need to build a community of support around me, or I need to reframe the way I'm thinking about things, or like whatever it might be. So that, I think, is a universal principle that you've shared, that how lucky for your all of your associates to be doing their work in a culture that gets that and says, like, look, there's nothing wrong with you. It makes sense you have this response. What can we do to change the circumstance so that your response can elevate? So I love that. And then another thing I would definitely want our listeners to take note of is this language that you use, Donna, about not putting a judgmental label, using like an emotional label, or this is a good or bad label, but debriefing all along the way. Eric knows, like, this, I love to do this. I'm like, where are we going? How's it going? Are we still on track? But instead of saying this is good or this is bad or this hurt my feelings or whatever, and saying like, this is working, this is not working. And then being able to operate from there. Okay, well, what's not working about it, or what is working about it? And then obviously what you said, what are we learning here? Because whatever did or didn't work, what is working is that we are getting better together, because we're learning from this situation and we're going to take that experience forward. And again, that's a universal principle. That's in our family, we call family council. We just hold them all the time, and we're constantly trying to figure that out. But I love your language. We're usually saying, what do you want more of? What do you want less of? But I love these words that you're using. And so I will be using those words going forward. And it's so much nicer to hear, like, this isn't working for me, than you're wrong. So I appreciate that. I'm already going to be leveling up in that language. So thank you for us and for everyone who will hear this.
And because now we're not making it about the person, because now you feel made to feel some way, and it's if you can take that and, put this work for me and this doesn't work for me, it just seems like it really takes the emotions out. And we've always said, where we're from, when emotions are high, intelligence is low. And I think we've all been that boat before, excuse the term boat, sailboat, whatever.
All good.
But, we've all been there. Listen, we've all fallen short. We've had high emotions. We've said things to each other through time, and even earlier on, when Steve and I were first married, it's, we had to learn each other, because I think we're pretty selfish when we're independent and we're young and you're cocky and you got all these aspirations and this is the way the world is. But then when you bring two people together, I think there came these aha moments, at least for me with Steve. I said, this doesn't work for me. I can't talk to you this way and you can't talk this way to me because it's not going to do any good to us except tear us down. I mean, honestly, at such a young age,
Yeah.
and sometimes manufacturing, I go back, I've been doing this for 43 years and, even to be a woman, and I believe in equal opportunity, right? All those jazz, but I still like my door open by Steve. I still like being treated like a woman, but that's me. If other women don't like that, that's okay. This is Donna's world. But to me, I felt like maybe even growing up in manufacturing that it was predominantly men, and I go back to 1982 when I first started with my dad full time. I'd worked there through summers. It's like I picked up some habits, I'll say, that I felt like I had to, you remember the big shoulder pads?
Yes.
I go to meetings and the
I
big
love
have to-
those.
I have to
I
become a
I miss
man.
those. I hope they come back.
They are back.
Oh no.
They're back.
Oh gosh, I felt like I had to talk like a guy. Cussing was acceptable in the shop. It was shop talk. There were things that happened in the shop that you just don't see of anymore. And I personally feel we're a little better because of it. I feel we're a lot better because of it. Because as women started to involve in our industry, and so we had women buyers or women who were engineers or women in quality positions, they would come out and I was like, okay, guys, you got to get rid of the calendars in your toolbox. I know you own your calendar. It's your toolbox, but you're in our shop and it's just not acceptable anymore. So I've seen a lot of good things. So, I don't even know how we led down this path. There's just been a lot of changes. And so it's so great today to feel okay that it's okay for me to be a woman and feel like I do today, where I might not have been able to share that 43 years ago or.
Well, I think the difference though is that you weren't given anything either, right? And you weren't given a position because you were a woman either.
No.
And I watched her claw her way to the top and put herself in front of people and to put this confidence out there in a very male dominated world. So my job with her was to encourage her to be able to do that. Say, listen, I'm going to give you the perspective of a male side.
Which was good. It was very good for me.
Because I'm a male and I can tell you, this is what these guys are going to think. And they're going to want to tell you this, or they're going to want to belittle you there, here. And there's all these things that very, in the 80s, 90s was very, I would say, chauvinistic, and I will also say disrespectful to women in certain times, But at the end of the day, to be able to have those conversations and to encourage her to be who she actually can be was really my job for her. I didn't want to tell her, no, you can't do it. You're a woman. You can't this, that, and the other thing. Listen, you're smart. You can do these things. And who cares what they say? Who cares what they think? Of course, there's a line that if they cross, there's that complete line that we have to watch for. But at the end of the day, if you possess the talent and the knowledge to do what you do, doesn't matter regardless of what gender you are.
Right.
And we look at it as long as you can get the job done, right? I don't care if you're purple. I don't care if you're a male, a female, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
If you meet the expectation of where we're going, and you put the time into making our company a world-class company, then you're worth what you're worth. You know, I think we talked about some other things too, as far as the leadership side of things, and like we did. I know we hit it. The fact of the matter is that giving people advice to do something that you wouldn't do is really hypocritical, and that's the same thing that I wanted to bring up between her and I, is that I would never want to send her into a war path of anybody that I wouldn't do myself, you know. So, but at the end of the day, it's been a really great journey, not only for business, but for our own relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And it really started out with our own relationship. I think, like Donna said, not talking to each other in a negative way. She's my best friend.
Mm-hmm.
Why would I want to hurt my best friend? Why would I want to say something terrible to my best friend? I'm not going to say in heaven, because we're all human beings, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'll be the first one to say, yeah, I've messed up. I don't want to, but I'll unmess up and we'll learn from it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So, but that was, word. It's really, yeah.
To unmess up.
Unmess up. Yeah. So anyways, to go from there, and it doesn't matter if you're in business together or if you're married together, you know, what's the most important thing that you want to accomplish? And even with our kids, we were us before they were them. And that we always say that, they're very important in our lives, but we are the most important thing together. So.
I love that.
And you do think sometimes we get lost in our kids. I see it a lot today. You know, they just, you know, they're so, and we did everything with our kids, you know, but it's like, it can't be at the cost of your relationship. And I think, you know.
Well, and nobody suffered, I'll tell you that,
No.
you know, but at the end of the day, yeah. So what it is, and we actually had this conversation, I believe this morning, because a little quick story over Easter, we bought our granddaughter some chickens, and four little chicks, and our granddaughters are 4 and 2, and or 3.5 and 2, and it's I think caring for an animal is very important, important life skill, right? Because they have needs, and I know a 3.5-year-old is not going to be like, okay, I got to take care of this animal, but you got to learn how to not to hurt it. And
yeah, you have to be gentle and kind, and, you know, we have to let them sleep now, and it's your nap time now, so they have to nap.
But it's funny because now our son and our daughter-in-law, of course, they don't live on a farm. They live in a neighborhood.
Like, thanks, Mom and Dad.
we just installed these chickens because it's going to be fun for them. But it's a good learning thing. But at the end of the day, I think experiences make people a much more well-rounded of an individual, you know. So I don't know where that was going. I think I wanted to make a different point, but I was excited about giving them chickens.
Well, I think you're helping your kids grow as people, and I love that you say we were us before they were them, and that your marriage takes priority over them. And you know, like, as much as I think, Donna, you were saying, you know, so many people get lost in their kids. What kids really want is a mom and a dad who love each other and take care of each other and have each other's back. And more than, you know, if you want to do something good for your kids, have a strong marriage.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And take care of each other as husband and wife. And so I just think, you know, I admire you guys in that regard as well. I'm curious, and you probably shared this with me on the boat, but can you give us the short version of how you guys met and came together? Because I feel like you guys are strong personalities with lots of different skills. How did you find each other and decide, hey, you know, you're the one, you're my best friend?
That's a great. So, Steve.
Okay.
So
Donna's version.
We're going to hear the Donna version.
and it's the right version, I'll tell you.
Of course it is.
Oh, yeah. So I opened up the yellow pages and I found the local dive shop was in my backyard because I was going to Europe with the backpack on my back, and I wanted to travel through Europe. You know, Europe was starting to, you know, they were talking about making all the different denominations and making the euro, and all this economic stuff was, you know, very interesting going on in Europe. And I had met some friends, and we're going to go visit. And So I went to the local dive shop and I met the old owner, who was Pete. And I said, Pete, will you be my instructor? I've loved Jacques Cousteau my whole life. I've always wanted to dive. My parents were not into any of that. We really weren't, my parents weren't boaters or anything, but I just had this passion and love for the ocean. And he's like, no, this guy named Steve bought it. And I'm like, oh, okay. So Scuba Steve, this is before the Adam Sandler movie. And, probably a little sarcastic I was at the time, but so I just started going to the classes and I'm looking across, and I was the only student in the class that signed up. And I'm looking at this nerdy little guy, and I was kind of very not kind of, I was very nerdy also, Um, and I don't know, all of a sudden this attraction came around, and so that's my story. That's how we met.
Yeah. So it was, like I said, she wanted to go to Europe and then become certified. So be it. I was the only scuba shop in town, which not very many.
And this is up in Michigan, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So I remember, I actually remember talking to Pete, the guy I bought the shop from. Now, at the scuba shop, I had my first job when I was 12 years old was at the scuba shop, and I had worked there the whole time. So, and then when I was old enough to buy it, I bought it
Wow.
and became
Cool.
a scuba instructor. Just like Donna, I loved Jacques Cousteau. I loved being underwater. Anytime I was in the water, I was probably underwater more than I was above the water. And when I was a kid, and just fascinated by that particular world, so we really had a lot in common. We didn't know we had a lot in common, but same thing. It was, I guess I could say love at first sight. Although I had a girlfriend, though, and she came in, I'm like, oh, look at this. What do I do? I'm like, wow, she's very attractive. She's very interesting. She's got a great personality.
And I just said, hey, let's just have dinner. And he's like, well, I have a girlfriend. I'm like, well, I'm not asking to date you. Let's go to dinner and talk.
I'm like, oof. Let me get back to you.
He's such a gentleman.
So
smart call by yourself.
I talked to her.
I think so too.
I called my girlfriend up at the time. I said, listen, the old saying, it's not you, it's me.
Mhm.
My mind was going somewhere that it would have been bad if I would have said and not exposed it, right? So at the end of the day, I told her, I said, listen, I think I'm thinking what I'm thinking, and it wouldn't be fair to anybody, and so I'm not going to cheat on you. I'm not going to go out with this person because I want to, and
it was the right thing to do. And actually, we know her to this day, and she is absolutely just a beautiful person inside and out.
Yeah, we still know her. Great person. Great person. So anyways, next class she comes back. I'm like, hey, guess what? I'm girlfriendless. so let's go to dinner, and so that's kind of that side of that right there. Then it was really great. We had a lot in common. Our parents were very similar in the way they conducted themselves as adults, and how they were brought up. They were predominantly from down south. Donna's parents were from Mississippi, and my mom was from Virginia. My dad was here from Michigan, but really there was a lot of a Southern influence in the way we were both brought up and things like that. So I feel like we had a lot in common.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of things that happened within our childhood that we had a lot of similarities that our parents were. And so we talked about them. We're like, wow. So really, I think my parents and her parents for doing the things that they did, because it allowed us to say, kind of did a lessons learned and said, we don't want to be like that.
Well, I think at any point in our lives, maybe, at least we do. I can't say people do this, but you look at your parents and go, what did you admire about them, or what worked with them? I'll go back to what worked, and what are the things that maybe you didn't like so much as a parent, or when we're grandparents, we will never do this. Or when we're grandparents, we will do more of this because that's what we appreciated and love so much. Right. So I honestly think it gets back to that, what's happened, And you have to do that at every stage of your life to say, what is happening? And literally write the facts down. It's
Yeah.
it's not emotional. What are the facts of what is happening right now, and what is working, what is not working, what are we learning, and what can we do better to make it better in the future? And I think that's where it started with our relationship.
Yeah.
You know, we've seen some similarities with our parents. We won't go down, that's a whole nother story. We're like, we don't want to be like that. We want to be stronger, more united, more loving. We don't like this side of them. This is what we want to change. And like Steve said, there were some things that our parents, and maybe it was the culture of the time. I really, I
Yeah,
don't know.
they had different circumstances in
Yeah.
their life than so environmental circumstances or social circumstances.
Yeah.
All that stuff was completely, I don't want to say different, but just not the same as we have,
Right.
And the disclaimer is that we came from very loving families. Both
Yes.
of our parents loved us
Yeah.
tremendously,
Very much so.
so there was no issue of our parents abandoning us or anything like that, because there was none of that whatsoever,
But there were times you go back as a child and go, wow. I'm not going to lie. I mean, I know my parents love me, but there's times you go back and you look at your upbringing, and as good as it was, there's those wows that you just look back at that. I don't want to get into the details because it doesn't matter. And I'm just like, wow, I can't believe we lived through this or that, And I think that's kind of, you and I had similar things that happened as we grew up.
Yeah.
And again, our parents loved us, but there was just some wow moments that you're just like, and that you never really talk about it until you find, like Steve and I could talk to each other and say, wow, how can we get through this? How can we be better because of it?
And it didn't make us mad, right?
No.
We didn't get bitter about things, or
No.
because they weren't bad enough to really be bitter, but it's just some behavioral things. You're like, wow, I would never want to be, treat you in that like that, or do that, or whatever it is. But at the end of the day, the big thing of it is that I was an only child, and she had her and three other sisters,
So there's four of us girls, and I'm the oldest, so that was interesting.
So for me, I grew up a little bit quicker. Not that you didn't, but I'm just talking about my end. Is that I got exposed to a lot of adult things, because I didn't. I was
There were no other
only
kids.
child.
There was no other kid buffer in your family.
No. I would go to bed, and I wouldn't go. My brother or sister, I didn't have one. So it was very interesting. I'm kind of glad I was an only child now that I hang out with you and your sisters. You guys have a fun time. And if they're listening, they are a fun group of people.
Yeah. And I think
all very different.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Steve.
No, go. As they all of her sisters all have a very different personality together.
So fun.
I believe that. Yeah. You were going to say,
I was just going to say, I think every parent would hope for their children to, again, take all of the good that they had to offer and then try to patch up some of the places where maybe there were gaps. I know my parents, did that from their parents, and we're trying to do that. And our kids already have ideas of how they're going to make improvements when it's their turn to raise the next generation. And so I think that is a great way to honor our parents, and just say, hey, you did the best in your circumstance, and I'm going to do the best in mine. And that's how I'm going to follow in your footsteps, is by doing my best the same way you did. So I love all of that and hope. And one of the things that I hope to draw out is that as parents, as a mother and father of your children, you become the prime example. And so anything they're going to do is either going to be continuing or amplifying something that you did, or making a change from what you did, but you are the base template. And so having that solid foundation of letting your kids know, hey, the marriage relationship is always going to be the priority, and then saying, come along with us, or like you said, Eric, that gives the stability that they need. I always say that is like the platinum program for kids. If you are able to offer that to them, it's a great feeling. No matter what else you can offer them by way of experiences or classes or whatever, if you can offer them that, that helps them the most healthy And then maybe
Well, and
read
that's
to them.
it's
That's the
a
other
culture.
thing.
You know, it's a culture. You're creating your family culture within.
Hmm.
You know, and all families have culture, whether it's a good one or a bad one. You know, it's
Wow.
your choice.
I wouldn't say good or bad. I mean, I guess there could be like unabusive, like if that's a big extreme, but yeah, every family, I do totally agree. Every family has that a culture. Every business, you can walk into certain restaurants or certain establishments that you like, and there's probably a reason you like it. It's the culture. You know, you feel like, you know, they kind of remember your name, they remember about your family, and those are sweet and important to you, you know, and you're
Yeah.
treated. And you've been to establishments where you're like, wow, I won't go back there anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
Part of our part of our mission of our company, and a very small excerpt of it is treat each other like your own family or in your family environment. But we have to clarify that, though, because not every family environment is the same.
Or the
So
healthiest.
we had to define what we meant by family environment. You know, so
And I think, I don't know, I mean, I don't remember it exactly, but in the mission, the family, you know, to be treat each other like a family. We said family means trust,
respect.
respect, um,
I can't remember. Yeah, it's been
love. We actually have love in our
Yeah.
corporate mission. Love, with respect and correction, because we all need correction from time to time, right? You know, but you want it to be done in a respectful, trusting manner to say, yep, I see this. I could make some change here, which we both, Steve and I both have gone through our life to say, you know, this probably wasn't the best way to handle this. I'm sorry. And you know, it's a bit humbling to be able to look you have to be honest with the person you see in the mirror every morning, you know. And sometimes it wasn't always easy, but to say, you know what, or maybe if I felt I was wrong, you have this big thing you swallow here and go, don't really like the way this feels and doesn't work for me, but I'm going to do the 24-hour rule and just be quiet.
Yeah. Well, again, it's this communication, and
It
you know,
is.
and everybody wants to be validated with their own ideas, you know. So a lot of times people will then go seek somebody else's and talk about their problems. Say, "See, wasn't I right?" You know, and if you have to go do that, you're talking to the wrong person. Yeah. So
Yeah.
we have a lot of friends, we have a lot of acquaintances, but her and I are best friends. We surround ourselves. We feel like our friend group is a very small friend group, but at the end of the day. Um, we don't talk about issues with people and don't seek validation from outsiders that have they can't do anything about the situation. You know, obviously, if there was a professional person that was a non-biased opinion, we would seek that. You know, but
SME.
yeah, exactly. But you know, I can't seek information with one of my friends that they've been divorced 3 times. You know, because I don't think that would be good information for me. You know, so um, I don't know. It's been a great journey for us. I know getting to know Eric on the boat and him telling me about the minoxidil that makes going to make me handsome one day. Um, I, yeah, I do have that now. I did buy the 6-month
Supply.
version of it.
I was literally
I
going
had
to
to
buy
get
you a
after
box
it.
and send it to you. You beat me to it.
We have a new tagline for our listeners. You've probably heard Eric before. He loves to talk about how he uses minoxidil to keep his hair thick and luscious, and one day he's gonna like repackage, rebrand, and sell it. But the tagline we came up with was "Don't let your hair go to your head."
Oh,
Emily came up with that one. Full credit
I
right
like
here.
that.
Oh,
That's
man.
funny. So I got after Steve other day. I'm like, hey, have you been using your minoxidil? I go, look at, you want to be, what did you say? Makes you more handsome?
Side
Listen,
effects include
Handsomer?
handsomeness. Side effects, yeah.
What was the side effect?
Side effects may include handsomeness.
Yeah, there you go.
I'll never be as handsome as Eric, but I'm going to work on it. I'm going to tell you that right now.
You've been handsome from the get-go, Steve. You're a good-looking guy. Well, hey, as we wrap up here, I want to kind of summarize one of my key takeaways from what we've talked about today, and then I have one last final question for you too. we've talked a lot about this, what I'm going to call a postmortem, because this
Or
process
the
you've
debrief,
the debrief, what you've described, because in a show, when the show closes, you do a postmortem. Postmortem is after death, I guess. So once the show is done, you say, okay, how did that go? What did we do right? What could we do better? What did we learn? And it's all in the past now. We're not going to try and change anything. That show is closed. But when we do another show, what are we going to do differently? What are we going to do better? And I've heard you talk about how you said when emotions are high, intelligence is low.
and the
so you-
24-hour rule.
and so you try and say, we're going to keep the emotions low so that the intelligence can be high. And we're just going to say, what is happening? What do we like? What's good?
Oh no, what's working, what's not
What's
working.
working? What's not working? What do we want more of? What do we want less of? And to your point, Emily, this can apply in a business. It can apply in a marriage. It can apply in a family. And
in a friendship.
and in a friendship, and even just your physical health.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really love that you've talked about that principle of just saying, let's take stock, let's assess the situation. We're not going to try and change the past, but we are going to try and learn from it and improve our future for everyone's sake.
That's the only way you can actually be intentional. You talked about every family having a culture, and I believe that's true, but I don't know how many families are intentional about the culture that they're creating. And so that could also be a takeaway
Yeah,
for people.
for sure. So here's my last question. What are you guys excited about right now? What are you most looking forward to? And you can answer individually, you can answer together. I'm just curious, like, what are you've done so many rich, beautiful things as a husband and wife, as a mom and dad, grandma and grandpa. I mean, you just bought chickens, my word.
Yeah.
That's so fun.
Yeah.
We're in a little trouble for the chickens.
So what are you excited about? Or what are you looking forward to right now?
For us, this is so weird because we have a lot of exciting things in our lives. We've got a couple. We can't say at this point exactly what it is, but we're looking at some other acquisitions in the business side of it. We're looking at a smaller acquisition on with our son and some other stuff that he wants to accomplish in his world. Those are exciting to us to be able to kind of mentor that. So some of these new acquisitions and these are stuff that was never even on the horizon when we were on the sailboat with you. But we always say, or I say, is way leads to way, kind of, because when you're in something, you're going to find more of what you want. And so we're finding more of these exciting things. We talked about, wanting a boat. We talked about our little captain's license thing and doing our little charter boat thing. And that's a fun thing on the horizon right there. But we have a number of nice little acquisitions that we're in the middle of that. We'll see if it happens. It happens. Everything's got to be right. There's so many things during due diligence that can change, or whatever. But on the other hand, in Michigan here, where we're at right now, the ice is let up, and we're looking forward because our boat just went back into the water from dry dock. So that was good. The boating season starts here in Michigan here real soon, but. I don't know, what other things are you excited
Real quick,
about?
I just want to chime in. One of the things that it was fun talking about with you on the boat is because we are in the process of an acquisition, and I think I told you guys a little bit about that. Does that ring a bell for you at all?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
all right.
We're still in
That's
due
exciting.
diligence
And
as
we're
well.
we're still in due diligence, and so it's a fun adventure. It's a fun adventure. I think business can be a fun adventure, and we're going into some new territory. So I like hanging out and talking with people that are further along in that path than us, because we may be coming to you for some advice.
Yeah, and so we don't know it all, and we go to plenty of people for advice, and we have surrounded ourselves with some of the most, I think, amazing people in not only just what we do for business, but in the finance side, and then in a lot of the M&A groups, kind of gurus in that end, so.
But it's an emotional thing, don't you think?
Mm-hmm.
It's a
Isn't
journey.
it? Like one minute you're high and you're like, oh my gosh, this is so awesome. And then the next minute you're like, oh my God, what in the heck are we doing? Is this the right thing? Like I said, it's like this emotional roller coaster. And at the end of the day, listen, it's going to work out.
So
that's the
I
ride
will
we're on
say
too.
though, when we do our due diligence, we do have this thing that we had learned from this couple, and it's what could go right.
Ah,
Oh, yes.
Yes,
Oh, you
yeah.
guys are so kind.
So that is really when we look into it, when we look at the due diligence, you look at the potential of the asset and possible revenue and all stuff like that, but what could go right? How can all that go right?
Yeah.
And I think if more people had that adage about themselves in their daily world, because we obviously focus on what could the 500 things that go wrong, and we will have such a narrow perception of life, then we won't get out of our own way.
Yeah. No, I do like that. I'm telling you, after we watched, we went to your website, we listened to a couple podcasts, and then we just loved it. Can we tell you what could go right? More people need to say what could go right. Sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, what could go right? Let's talk about this.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it so much, you go down so many rabbit holes. Guess what? You don't do nothing.
Yeah.
Like how many people have sat there and said, oh, but this could go wrong. I mean, at the end of the day, you have to be wise. You have to get wise counsel. You have to get people to help you. But at the end of the day, you can talk yourself out of things. And so we love that. I forgot about that. Thank you for reminding me.
Yeah.
What could go right? Because some people will just get stagnant and they will do nothing, And we look at our lives and we're like, gosh, look at all the stuff we've done. And people are like, are you crazy? Like you guys, I'm sure you've heard people say, are you crazy to take your kids across the Caribbean, up the Atlantic to New York City, But how fun. What a cool story.
Yeah, it was very inspirational to us because we think in that same aspect, and to finally come across another group of people that have the same thought process and some of the same ideas. And hey, the things that could go right, maybe, and if they didn't go right, what else could go right? I just think it's
be different. It'd be a different right.
Yeah. So
awesome. Any
I
final
love
words
that.
from you, Emily? Before
No,
we
that's
close
how we always end. Like, that's perfect.
As if you've listened to episodes, we always end just by asking that question: what could go right?
Yeah, it's exciting. It's terribly exciting. So,
well, one of the things that has gone right today is talking with you guys. So thanks for joining us. Thanks for being on.
Well, thanks for having us on. God bless you too.
God bless you as well.
Thank you very much. And we'll hopefully see you soon.
I hope so too. What could go right? Hey guys, it's Eric. Before we wrap up, I want to give you the sailing takeaway. As I'm recording this, at the moment, we're going to be in Italy, June 7th through the 14th. We do have one cabin at the moment. By the time this airs, that may be gone. But if you're curious, just ping me. hello@theawesomefactory.nyc. We're also going to be in Greece, July 19th through the 26th. And then we're going to be in Croatia, August 2nd through the 9th. So if any of those are interesting to you, drop us a line, hello@theawesomefactory.nyc. Also, one thing to note, these trips are 2 days longer than our regular trips. So you get 2 bonus days as compared to the regular trips that we do in other parts of the world. Also, because of this acquisition that we've mentioned a couple times, we may not be doing more trips to the Mediterranean for a while because we're going to be otherwise occupied during the summer months with this possible new business. So if you want to get to the Mediterranean, this is your year. We're for sure going, not sure after this, but Italy, June 7th through the 14th. At the moment, there's one cabin. Greece, July 19th through the 26th. There's one cabin for now. And then Croatia, August 2nd through the 9th. We got a couple of cabins available. So DM me, DM us, or email us, and would love to hear from you and see if it's a fit.